Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this webinar on the Enhanced Healthcare Home Model of Care. We're delighted to have you with us this evening. Let's start with a karakia and then we'll move into introductions, whakawhanangatanga. Hi, Merle. Are you happy to start us with our karakia?
Tēnā koe, Bridget. Ai. Anei te tahi a te karakia. He honore, he karoria ki te atua, he maunga rongo ki te whenua. Aroha mai tātou, I am coming back. He karakia whakatīmatatanga, our opening karakia. Tūtawa mai I runga, tūtawa mai I raro, tūtawa mai I waho, tūtawa mai I roto, kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, taiki e. Kia ora mai tātou katoa, Bridget, kia ora.
Kia ora, Merle. Thank you so much. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Well, Bridget Allen tōku ingoa. And I'm the Chief Executive of Te Whakairangi Health Network. And I'm also privileged to sit on the Healthcare Home Governance Group as the co-design champion, hence why I'm here tonight chairing this webinar. I'm originally from Otepoti, Dunedin, and I've lived and worked in Taitoparau, both in Hokianga and Whangarei, in Wellington, and I'm now based in the Hutt Valley. So it's delightful to be here with you all tonight to share our understandings and our stories. And now I'll ask our panel to introduce themselves. Hi, Merle.
Tēnā koe, Bridget. Tēnā koutou katoa e noho mai nei ki te whakarongo ki tēnei webinar. Ko mā tātua te waka, ko te awa nui a rangi, ko tauranga moana hoki, ko maua o te maunga, ko uretara te awa, ko ngai te rangi te iwi, ko ngai tamawhari o te hapu, ko Merle Mapuna Samuels ahau. Tēnā koutou katoa. I am also one of the consumers for the Healthcare Homes Collaborative and very pleased to be here this evening. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, Gary.
Kia ora, Merle, and kia ora, Bridget, and yeah, kia ora, whānau. Lovely that you can join us on this webinar. Ko Gary Sutcliffe, toko ingoa, e noho ana aho ki Waitakere, ki Tamaki Makaurau, inai anei no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. My name is Gary and I'm one of two consumer advisors on the Healthcare Homes Collaborative alongside Whai Merle. Kia ora.
Thank you both, Merle and Gary, not only for tonight, but for all the work you have done and your continued support for our kaupapa. So my role this evening is to host this webinar, and we're going to focus on how consumers can better engage with their doctor and their primary healthcare team. I'm going to be calling on the knowledge and expertise of our wonderful panelists tonight. And we're going to make sure that there's time for questions. If you can please use the Q&A function button at the bottom of your screen, and when we've kind of done our presentations and had a bit more korero, we'll come back, pick up your questions and do our best to answer them. So, just looking at our healthcare home model of care, this is built around pai ora. And you can see that we have our 4 key domains of care across the top. That is our urgent and unplanned care, our proactive care, our routine and preventative care, and our sustainability. But it's grounded, it's rooted, as you can see, in our values. And these values and the way that our picture here of our wonderful tree have come from some great work that a number of people have been engaged with, reshaping somewhat our healthcare home kaupapa with a strong emphasis on Māori health, on equity, and on consumer involvement and co-design. We're now going to hear from Merle on a little video which explains why this process of reshaping our model of care was important and why it will have impact. Thanks.
I believe that the consumers will benefit from this enhanced model of care through the consumer co-design. What we did was that through whakawhanaungatanga, we were able to see how that works, how it's heard, but through the Healthcare Homes Collaborative, or our, excuse me, when we've been feeding in, I have heard the voices of consumer. I've never thought before how that could make the difference. Coming to a point now and realising through whakawhanaungatanga and having been heard, hearing the voices and the concerns of many who have lived experiences has helped me to know that there are gaps. So healthcare homes and the enhanced model has made access easier, not only for Māori, but the top or high priority groups are out there.
So kia ora Merle, you're here twice over. It's wonderful. And I think we're all, those of us who work in healthcare, aware that there are gaps, that our current system hasn't always met the needs of people in many, many ways. So how the healthcare home model of care is very much about improving the way that services run in primary care to do a better job for people. So a bit more about the healthcare home and what does it mean for you and I as patients, as consumers. There's quite a lot of features, and this is a very busy slide. The key things here, often people think first of all about when I'm unwell, how will I get access to the care that I need? And there are numbers of things that our practices can do that actually make it easier for people to get that urgent care when they're unwell. But also then at times, people need help to stay well, that we have maybe some kind of a condition that means that we actually need a bit more help and support to stay well. So that's where the proactive care part of the healthcare home model comes into play. And then there's all the things that we need to do to keep ourselves healthy and where our general practice can help us to do that, whether that by recall systems, by screening, by reminding us about things, all of those elements actually can also be improved in our healthcare home model of care. And then when we actually go to visit the practice, we want it to be a welcoming place that invites us in, that knows not just us, but also our whānau and how we all hang together. And we want to know them as a wider primary healthcare team who can support us more actively. And that's the element of actually having a really well-functioning general practice that's a sustainable model that looks after the people who work in it so that they can look after all of us who are consumers. So that's a quick run through, and as you can see there's a lot more detail. Towards the end of the webinar we'll give you a link to where you can find a lot more information and more of the detail about the healthcare home and how that works. But now I'd like to introduce you to a short video with our friend Isabel.
Take Isabel, for example. When she is unwell, she knows she can call up her healthcare home practice and speak directly to her doctor over the phone. Isabel might even save herself a trip to the doctor's if it's something they can resolve over the phone. If Isabel's health issues are a little more complex, she can rest assured, knowing her care will be comprehensive and coordinated. Her practice will work with her to develop a health plan tailored to her needs, ensuring she receives the right care at the right time, at the right place, and from the right people. The healthcare home model makes best use of new technologies to allow clinicians to coordinate patient care in a more efficient way. This allows Isabel to use the online portal to securely access her health information from anywhere. She can book appointments, order repeat prescriptions, and check her test results, all with a few clicks from the comfort of her home. If, however, Isabel does need to make a visit to her practice, she knows she'll be greeted by friendly reception staff in a calm, quiet wait room, and that everything will be done to ensure her visit is smooth, quick, and easy.
Thank you, Isabel. So when we think about those elements that were just played to us, and we think about it from a consumer perspective, perhaps we need to think more specifically about what kind of benefits patients might receive from participating. Again, this is quite a busy slide, and it's really just about elucidating the kind of things that might make a difference for a patient in those different situations. I'm not going to read through it, that's really boring, but if you have a look at when I'm unwell, actually that's about being able to really access easily through a range of different ways to get the acute or urgent care that's needed. Helping me to stay well, is there somebody who's in my whānau or me who really knows, who's really well known by the practice so they can support my ongoing care? And then to keep me healthy, there's lots of ways that we can stay in touch with our general practice, and Gary's going to talk a bit more about that as we go on. And then when I visit the practice, I feel welcomed and it's a great place to be for the time that I'm actually there. So I want now to hand over to whānau to talk a little bit more from her consumer experience and the stories she knows and has heard about how this model is going to work better for patients, for consumers. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Bridget. Kia ora mai tata katoa e whakarongo ana mai pai ki te mohio ko koutou e noho mai ki te titiro hoki. Welcome again. Look, as a consumer, and I have to admit, I had a question. At this stage, everyone allows me to come from the heart and to share the things that I feel before clinical and planning. I think also it is about patients not only being able to get into the clinic or come to the clinic or communicate, but it's about navigating your clinic. It's about knowing the options that are there, that you, when you go and you are unwell, know what the options are in there, because that is how, and I feel, you will make that connection. That is how you will start to realize this is not a, this is not a once trip. This is part of a life program for yourself and also for the doctor. This becomes, when we are on our own, we are alone. When there is one other or more person in our space, it almost feels like a duet, a partnership. So until we can navigate our way through Isabel's journey and know what our options are, I honestly feel that the connections will be different. Your sense of belonging and ownership to that practice, that you will have a practice whānau. The enhancements that healthcare homes have made is trying to, actually, we are not trying. We are working on consumer voice So it's been a necessity to know consumer voices being heard. So the things that have been put in place, not only to ease access for whānau patients, high priority groups that are out there, it is absolutely for all people to come and feel that inside they are getting the best care and that they have come to the right place at the right time and they're sitting at the right table. As a consumer involved in this mahi and knowing that more and more right now, although I'm aware of the 4 domains within the clinic that many of us consumers don't know about. We don't know that those things exist. When we go to see the doctor, we only see what we see without knowing the preparation behind, because healthcare homes would like to make sure that every person that comes through that door is having an experience of well-being, that they are feeling and being cared for, that they are able to contact the clinic, the practice, because of the different modalities that are now available through the enhanced model of care. Gary will share that to you later. Mine is about get connected to all consumers and patients and whānau that are out there. Know your journey through the clinic. Your connection starts to become ownership. When you start feeling like that, and I am first and foremost to stand up and talk about whakawhanaungatanga, whakakotahi, do it all together. If there's one thing that we all have in common throughout this world, as I am breathing and you are listening, we have a body that needs to be taken care of. One little thing before I leave you, let healthcare homes help you do that. Thank you, Bridget.
Good, Emil, and thank you. You're so right in your comments. Thanks to those people who are putting in some questions. That's great. We'll come to them a wee bit later, but keep them on coming in. We're really keen to see what we can do to answer those and to keep the journey going forward. Gary, would you like to talk a little bit more now about, from your perspective, how the healthcare home works for consumers?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bridget. Yeah, look, kia ora whānau. My patient experience background is mostly around mental health issues for over the past almost 30 years and ongoing cardiac health maintenance following a heart attack in 2010. Although today I'm going to focus on telehealth and my experiences of accessing various telehealth options during and since the March lockdown with COVID. You will have seen the wee clip there from Isabel and her journey where there is a reference to other ways to access your healthcare provider. For me, despite having worked in the health sector since 2004 and in primary health between 2013 and to 2017, mostly as a peer support specialist in a non-clinical role, peer role, I had never considered any option other than making an appointment and going to see my GP, the option of me connecting with my healthcare team. During the lockdown, I had some questions I wanted to ask of my GP, including about medications to do with my depression and anxiety. As I was relatively well at the time, I didn't want to disturb the doctor of the practice by making an appointment, which I perceived to be a very busy and stressful time for medical practices in dealing with people who may have had some symptoms of COVID or had to get tested or had more urgent needs than I did. I inquired I sort of sent an email really from memory. I think I I sent an email instead because I had an email for the clinic, and so I inquired about a patient portal. I'd heard about patient portals. In fact, I'd known quite a bit about them, but had never done anything about it for myself. The receptionist, I think it was, might have been a nurse, emailed me back with info as to how to connect up with a patient portal, and so I set it up. That reply from her came the next day, and so I set it up. So once I was done, I messaged my GP with the questions I needed to ask. I got a reply the next day from her, and she arranged for a script to be sent to my pharmacy. So I did all of that from home, literally sitting at home and on my laptop. I've only used the portal 3 times since March, but it certainly served its purpose at that time. I'm still very much a face-to-face person. I prefer to see my GP in person. However, I now know that there are more than one way to actually access my healthcare team if my circumstances change in the future. And also something I'd also like to add is that my interactions with my healthcare team have not just been medically based. And I think having the mental health issues I had, there's been an exploration, if you want to call it that, of other things happening in my life. So it's not just about my medical conditions, it's about other things as well. So the area of self-management is really big and is part of the model of care with healthcare homes. And that's all part of that whānau that Mel talks about, is making that connection with someone, finding out about them as a person, not just what their health issues are, but who they are and who their family is and what some of the other parts of their background. So we know that sometimes when you see your doctor, it may not actually be a medical problem. It could be other things in your life that are causing you a lot of stress. It could be something to do with your housing, or your power being cut off, or a family member becoming unwell, something else that's triggered off some kind of stress. And so the self-management of that, and encouraging you to work through ways in which you can better cope with the stress, have some coping strategies, or what we call in the self-management sort of like a wellness toolbox, things that you can call on if something happens in your life. And it's kind of like they use this technical terms of triggers and what do they call them? Early warning signs. So it's actually being able to self-identify what they are, and also having kind of like an action or something that you can do when you feel in that space that you're not quite right, and the sort of things that you can do. And I mean, for me, they're pretty basic things, but they're things that make a difference. Listening to music makes a difference, and just doing puzzles in the paper. But it's all these sort of things so that you healthcare professionals with healthcare homes are very keen to help you manage your own life and your own health, and helping you work through a care plan that works for you and works for the care team, and sharing that with the people you want to share it with. So that's probably about all from me, Bridget. I don't know whether I've overspent my time or underspent it, but there you go.
We've got plenty of time, thanks, Gary. One of the questions that's come up as we've been going through the kōrero so far is about what about people who don't have or don't want to use their computer or phone to use the portal? Have you got any thoughts about what they might do? Gary, would you like to answer that now or come back to it a bit later?
Yeah, no, look, that's fine. And there are a lot of people that don't have access to these, I call them toys, particularly the younger generations, but I shouldn't say that. It's probably a lot of my generation that seem to have their ear glued to their phones. But there are other ways to do that. And look, a phone call just making that phone call. You don't have to go to the clinic, but making a phone call to the receptionist or speaking to the nurse, they're always going to be there for you. And that could be teeing up an appointment for you, or doing what they call a triage, just to get a sort of a feel for where you're at the moment and what might be best to help. So just the good old telephone is as good as it always was, and you'll always get a very good and prompt response from the team.
And I think that's one of the benefits that we find from Healthcare Home, that because the team actually have cleared phone calls because of the use of the portal by some patients, it leaves more time to help those who perhaps don't want to use those electronic methods. It's good. We've also got a couple of other questions about the role of consumers actually being involved in the process of service improvement at the practice level. So Merle and Gary, both of you, I'm sure, would have some ideas about what's the best way that practices could invite consumers to be part of service improvement, or what could patients themselves do to actually signal to their practice that they want to participate. Perhaps, Gary, do you want to start, and then we'll see what whānau.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, and there will be a wee question at the end of the webinar with some options you've got there, but certainly one of those that Merle and I have both been, I'll say, privileged to have been involved in being part of this quality improvement, service improvement, whatever you want to call it, is this concept, no, the reality of co-design. And co-design really, or co-production probably is better, I suppose, to put it in some context there, is that the important part of this is that if as a practice or as you're thinking of doing something, before you actually get to the start of spending a lot of time on what you're going to be doing, ask yourselves the question, what do you think the patients would want? Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it is. And if you've got, I know there are probably databases created by all of the clinics, is to send a message out and sort of saying, look, we're rearranging the clinic, and we really like your input into that, and give patients and their family options of way they can feedback on that. They might be happy to fill out a form. They might be happy to come along to the clinic on a particular day and be part of a little focus group, or they might like to be part of the huddles that the doctors and their teams have in the morning, if they could be invited into doing something like that. The important part of co-design is that involve your patients or people or the whānau, the consumers, right from the start. You know, when you've literally got this blank canvas and you sort of think, okay, let's get everybody around and let's just put this blank canvas up and put the ideas up and keep people involved all the way through, right from that brainstorming kind of start to the testing it out, to implementing it on a wider scale, right through to evaluating how it went and maybe tweaking it a wee bit. And I know as a consumer myself, being involved in a number of different co-design things, is that I actually feel really good about that, because I feel that I've made a difference, that I've contributed something that's made a difference. And in some of the recent things that I've done, I've felt more and more that way, because I've felt more genuinely involved rather than just a token consumer, just to tick a box to say, well, we've consulted with a consumer and that's it, thanks. Merle.
Thank you, Gary. Like Gary, I believe that the walk is the same. However, we would invite you to stay till the end of the webinar, because you will see the link and we will invite you to come forward if you have an interest in this. If you know of other health consumer advisory groups, it's about finding your way, but knowing all the things that have concerned you before now, it actually finds a place. And there are people committed to the group and the shared information that will do what we are doing tonight with a collaborative like Healthcare Homes. I feel like I would love to scream out and tell everybody, go and find a similar group, a similar love that you have, to be able to put out those sort of concerns, to know that they are going somewhere and you are shaping somebody else's future. So I'm going to wish you well. Hope you stay for the end of the webinar so you can see that link. And the things that Gary was saying, definitely it is another way to come through. And the work is very exciting. May not be something you know straight away, but that is life. Life doesn't tell you what's in store. Anyway, I'll see you at the end of the webinar. Kia ora.
One of the other questions, follow-up questions that someone is asking is about, should the same people be consulted over time, or different people at different times and on different topics? And I think you've answered that, because in fact there's a lot of different ways that people can be involved. I've been delighted to see amongst some of the practices in our network how well they've used it. Some of them actually have kind of like standing patient advisory groups who give them feedback and on specific topics, and they meet once every couple of months and talk through the topic and so on. In other practices, they do more like focus groups, like Gary was talking about. And in one particular practice, they actually were doing a complete fit out of a new building, and they used their patient advisory group to actually advise them on what the fit out should be like. And it changed completely to be actually much more consumer focused and actually a better place for everybody to work in as well. So I think there's a number of great examples of the value that we have.
I can add to a wee bit to that too, Bridget, is that just in response to that question, is that I think a lot of us, a lot of patients, consumers, whatever you want to refer to us as, quite often get to fill out a survey. They often call them patient satisfaction surveys or something like that. And a lot of the time, a lot of people, well, I do too, some of them you sort of do the survey and nothing happens after that. You don't hear anything. You sort of wonder if it's a waste of time. And some people might do one, sort of think, well, I had some really good suggestions in there and I can't see any changes, so I'm not going to do one again. And I think the good thing with the co-design is keeping people informed all the way. You know, just a progress report sort of saying, look, you know, you took part in this focus group or whatever, or you completed the survey. Just want to let you know where we're at with that and when the next time is that we'll contact you. So yeah, it's really rewarding to do that.
It's great. And another one of our consumers who's on the call has said that the DHB that she works in and with have asked its consumer council members to help recruit for more members for the practice groups. Recruited on their website and put posters around the hospital asking for people who might be interested in joining the consumer council. So that kind of idea of putting up posters and making sure that you're accessible is also a really good one. Mel, I've got a particular question here that I wonder if you might be able to help, because some people are saying, how will this model ensure that Māori and Pacific Islanders' needs are being met? Can I have a bit of a talk about that?
How well would we know that their needs are being met? I believe from the start, we learn in this space to work off feedback. I believe that when the patients or the consumers, excuse me, are being heard, the engagement is more. I also know that you would not be going through where you were getting called when the service that you are using or receiving as far as healthcare, I believe that the staff or the clinic, your healthcare team, start to know, well, they start to notice that you're probably not coming back in there as much. I think there are other things that Gary might be able to add about that. But when it comes to Māori and Pacifica, we need to speak, to say how we are feeling. And I think it would be great that the doctor or the nurses actually have something at the end. With healthcare homes, we are hoping that it is the experience that people, actually that the people get when they come through the door, all the way until they leave. So feedback, co-design, and what we've just spoken about starts to tell us that there is more involvement. We see less of the people after a while when they're doing as well. Actually, as I'm speaking, I'm feeling like I'm not on the right track there. Can I please ask Gary, do you have anything you could add, Gary? I know I'm the Māori.
That's okay. It's okay. I think this has got a lot to do with that very first time that the patient, whoever they are, but particularly people, Māori people, Pacifica people, people whose English is their second language, that when they make their first connection with the clinic, that the experience they have is a positive one, and that they feel that they've come to the right place and are getting the right sort of attention, just knowing that they're being heard. And a lot of that is to do with, rather than jumping straight into the medical stuff about what they're there and what they need, is tell us a bit about yourself, because there is a lot of depth and a lot you can actually find out from somebody in the space of a few minutes, really, as to who they are, what their background is, what their faith is, before you start even entering the realms of their illness or what they've come to see you about. Because as Mel said, they might not come back again if they get an ordinary or a bad, well, they won't come back if they get a bad experience, which is really sad, because they might sort of think, oh, well, it's a waste of time going to see a doctor and not do anything about it, which can lead to pretty critical situations. So really, it's just that whānangatanga, that way that people are welcomed when they come in, will make a big difference to actually creating a trusting relationship. Even if their clinician is not of their culture, but that the clinician actually shows some understanding and can connect well with them.
And I'm getting some positive feedback in the questions around the kōrero that we're having here. Ka pai tō kōrero e whaia. So we are hitting the right note here, guys. You don't need to worry, you're on the right track. Absolutely. Nicely answered, says somebody else. So that's great. I think one of the other things, though, that from a healthcare home kind of program side of things, is that in order to take our practices on this journey, because healthcare homes very much a journey for the practices. They start with some first steps, they learn, they gain confidence, they try some more, they do some more. So it's kind of continuous quality improvement for those of us who talk the jargon, and so on. But one of the things that I think we've talked about, Gary and Merle, is that sometimes some of our practice staff need better access to training to ensure they're engaging well with Māori and Pacific people in an appropriate and meaningful way. And we would recommend that people perhaps follow up and listen to some of Lance Norman's kōrero in that space, aimed at actually at practice staff and what they can do well in that space. But I suppose just to reassure people too, that part of the healthcare home programs work in the way that primary health organisations like Maiwa and Te Wakaerangi support the practices is by offering that kind of training, familiarisation and confidence building in that space. So thank you for the questions that are coming through. I think, all right, just looking and seeing what else we've got coming up in the way of questions. There's a few more that sort of relate to portals and things. I wonder if we might just have a bit of a look at one or two of those. One person said, I really love the portal and I'd love to be able to email my GP directly, but the emails all go to reception. How can I email my doctor directly? I suppose my answer to that one, and correct me if I'm wrong, you two, my answer to that one would be actually specifically send an email saying that's what you would like to have happen, because your practice will then need to sit down and think about it and actually encourage the practice staff like the doctors or the nurses to actually enable that function to work in the patient portal. So, you know, use your relationship with the reception people to try and get the message through to your doctor. If nothing happens in that space, next time you're talking to your doctor, perhaps raise it. I mean, I think the voice of consumers is so powerful in helping our practices to actually do a better and better job. Merle or Gary, any comments?
I think that, I can't really remember, but either there was somewhere to click on as to who I wanted to message, or I put on when it was a message from my GP, I just put, you know, for attention of Dr. Katic, and it went from there, and I got a reply from Dr. Katic. But I guess if you, in the portal, if you ask a general question, you may very well get an answer from a receptionist or the practice nurse or somebody like that. And whilst that's not a bad thing, but if you specifically wanted your doctor to reply, I just put, yeah, attention Dr. such and such. You may be on a first name basis with your doctor, which is great. There should be more of that. Just put it for their attention. Say, look, you know, so it becomes a very personal message, not rather than a general one for anybody to answer.
I didn't actually realise that the portal messages, for want of a better word, are intervened by the other staff before the doctor. Yet it makes sense, and I think they're both good suggestions that you and Bridget put forth. And at the end of the day, I think every patient needs to realise it is your choice where that goes and who you send it to. And that's one thing I would always like to advocate. If we are going to do another webinar, mine is about taking control and managing the things you do. If we don't walk into this in a partnership, we expect our healthcare team to do so much. And I'm happy to say that they will do their best for everybody that comes through the door. Others may not see that equity or achieving health equity will ever be right. But until we start putting our best foot forward and meeting our outcomes that we want, we're not leaving it totally in the hands of somebody else, because as a consumer or service user, I would expect the doctor to get it right. But in all honesty, I walked in there the way he receives me. I will walk out of there the same way if my mind hasn't had that shift to come to the party and bring my best self to that clinic on that day, despite how sore I might be. I feel I am being rude to expect the doctor to do 97% of my healing. Kaya koutou. Kia ora, Bridget.
Kia ora, Mel.
Yeah, kia ora, Mel, that's great. And one of the comments that's popped up says that someone's had a similar experience as well. And there's a bit of room for actually improvement at that practice. So, yep, definitely acknowledge that. This is a learning journey for everybody. And often, actually, our health practitioners are a bit scared about new stuff. It was interesting during the lockdown period. One of us as patients, as consumers, actually really got on to enjoying the telephone conversations, the video consultations and whatever. Sometimes it was our practitioners who needed just to have that experience and to get the hang of it. So we want to keep working with all of our practices to make sure that they are getting more and more confident. Some of the questions that have come up though have been talking quite a lot about actually the reluctance sometimes of patients to actually try some of this new technology. We've got a little video that some of our wider team put together, prompted by the lockdown, to actually encourage people who might be a bit diffident about it to give it a go. So I'm just going to get Kirsten to play this little video for us now.
Kia ora, Nan.
Hello, my moko.
Hey, we've got something we wanted to discuss with you.
We know you haven't been going to see the doctor.
I can't, boy.
Well, it's all virtual now, Nan. You can get checked up online. Hey?
Shut up. When things get back to normal, that's when I'll go and see the doctor. Trying to diagnose me over the computer. Get out.
All right, I see what you
man.
did there, Nan.
Right,
I've got a little
right.
surprise just for you. Here we go.
Kick
A
off,
little
boy.
something like this.
Bye. Shut up. That thing will give me radiation. It's not natural. Haere tonu.
Mate. All in.
Ooh.
Ia. Dra. Doctor. Shut up. It's not natural. Get out. Not today. Shut up.
Wahatoia mai i te takuta, ki te uru ngā te takuta, ki te moe ngā te takuta, ki te takotoranga I takotoa I te takuta. Hi.
Shut up. Now get out of here. Then he's got to talk to the handsome doctor. Hello, doctor. Hey?
All doctors are open for business. If you have any questions, reach out and call your doctor. They are here to help.
Kia ora, and thanks to the team of wonderful people, and particularly our wonderful actors who put that together. That little video is available to PHOs, to practices around the country to also play, to encourage all of our NANs and others to actually have that consultation with the handsome doctor. So, kia ora, thank you very much indeed, Kirsten, for getting that up and going for us. Look, we're almost coming to the end of our webinar now. We're going to be having some more webinars. Healthcare Home has been finding them a great way to pass the message back. We really want to encourage people to think about also what might need to happen for you to be able to manage your health over the festive season. So keep your eyes peeled for our upcoming webinar, Wednesday the 25th of November. We'll be putting information up on our website so that you can find that. And just a little bit of thought from us, from Merle and Gary and me, to all of you who are concerned about where our health system is going and how it's actually going to make the right kind of difference for all of our patients. We've got a little bit of a call to action. If your practice is a healthcare home, if you can consider whether you might join their patient advisory group or help them with their model. And we've talked a bit about ways you could do that tonight. If your practice is not a healthcare home one, could you ask them if they'd consider becoming one? That would be a wonderful way to help spread the word. We know how much you and we working together can make a difference. Thank you for your attendance tonight. Merle, any final words of wisdom?
Knowing the involvement of the consumer in healthcare homes, the webinars that we have had, I truly believe now. I have been with the collaborative for just over a year and a half, and I know people out there that are listening will know it. I have felt it several times in my life, and I just would like to share it again. Teamwork makes the dream work. And I'm so grateful to be part of this team, making this dream become a reality. Not just my dream, but that of many concerns that the consumers brave enough to share and also have faith that it was going somewhere. So once again, teamwork makes the dream work. Kia ora mai tātou. Thank you.
That was lovely, Neil. Absolutely. I don't know how to follow that up really, but look, I know that some doctors I've come in contact with really struggle with the concept of partnership with their patients. You know, I'm the health professional, I know how to fix you kind of thing. But when they take off their clinical hat, their doctor's hat, and see the patient as a person first and not as a diagnosis, things will change, and that relationship will become a very trusting one, and one where the patient feels that they're in the right place at the right time and they're with the right person. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Gary, that's lovely. And Gary, I wonder if you'd be to lead our final karakia to close off our webinar.
Kia ora, very happy to do that. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa. Te atawhai o tō tātou, ariki o ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tapu, ake, amene.
Amene. Tēnā koutou.
And tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Thank you all for attending our webinar tonight. We look forward to seeing you again in future. Ka kite anō.
Tātou katoa.
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you.
Can you stay there, Gary?